Welcome to the Obvious Leadership Podcast, where we dive into practical leadership insights that are, well, obvious. Your hosts have walked the talk, and now they're sharing their knowledge, strategies, and advice. Let's jump into today's episode and explore the world of leadership with your hosts, Joey and Omar.
Welcome to another episode of Obvious Leadership. I'm your host, Omar.
I'm Joey.
And we're here to give you some clarity when it comes to your leadership. But before we start, be sure to hit that like and follow button to keep up with a lot of these episodes coming out. And if you haven't, subscribe to our newsletter. Make sure you get the recaps with actionable items that you can take action on.
Yeah, we definitely appreciate all the feedback we've been getting, man. So keep that coming.
Oh, yeah. So I want to talk about something, right? So I was on LinkedIn. You guys can find us on LinkedIn, TikTok, most of the socials if you guys want to follow us and, converse with us there too. But it was a post about a guy who's been in sales and kind of like his journey, like top 5 things that he's done to make sure that he gets noticed and gets promoted, right? Be promotable. And obviously a lot of things that we talk about, especially being in sales, is that we go above and beyond. And that's one of the things that I think it was like number 3 on his list of top 5. And whether you're a leader or you're a salesperson, when it comes to sales, there is no like, this is where I stop. I've hit that mark and I just stop, right? Because in sales, we get bonuses, we get commissions, we get extra money for going above and beyond, right? And it just reminded me of the conversations I would have with my team. It's like, this is kind of like the benchmark. This is where expectation is at. And once you go above expectation, that's when you start to make the real money for yourself. That's when you start to see real changes for yourself. And it was a conversation about like how you communicate that. Because I know we've talked about this. Communication, you guys will, if you haven't understood this yet, communication is key as a leader. And not only is it key as you as a salesperson to your clients, to your customers, but for you as a leader, it is hands down the biggest skill set that you need to continuously refine. Because every person is different. Different peoples have different ways that they communicate and take information in, right?
Yeah.
And that was a huge one because it just reminded me of those times I'd have to sit down. Well, not just the salespeople, but also their store leadership, and have to reiterate the importance of going above and beyond in our type of industry, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's, and I've told you many times before, right? And I'm sure I'm going to be known for this, but I don't like sales calls.
Joey.
But like I said, I mean, you can look at it a couple different ways. Sometimes the company might put that minimum expectation, and essentially it's a break-even point for the company to say, hey, look, I'm hiring you as long as you produce this much. It's almost a break even, or this is the minimum amount that we want to make based on having a cheek in that seat. Right.
Yep.
So, that's coming from a number standpoint and justifying your position. Right. That's not necessarily talking about what is possible in that position. Right. And if you, like I said, I mean, it depends on how you communicate it. Because if you come out of training, you're like, oh, I only got to do X amount and this amount of days, like, then that's what your goal is. But if they, I don't know, man, like I said, it's just like, if they didn't give you that goal and you just went out there and did what you were supposed to do, then what are you going to do? Like, how are you going to perform against those expectations? I mean, honestly, I don't know of an organization out there that says, hey, look, we've given you the basics. We want you to do this every time and we'll see where you land. Like, I don't know I don't know that any organization takes that approach. Right. And I mean, honestly, maybe as a salesperson, sometimes if I don't know what the goal is, I don't know what the benefit to me as far as compensation will be, maybe I won't do it every time, or maybe maybe there's not enough motivation there. But
Yeah.
I think the possibility could be, maybe you pay them more up front if they commit to doing the basics every time. You commit to them doing a job, right? That will involve sales. Like maybe the production would be better if you just gave them a better base instead of just incentivizing them for the end result.
And I mean, that's always going to be like a hot potato topic, right? Because you're going to have people on both sides.
Yeah.
I think that, yeah, there should be some compensation to make sure that your team isn't hungry. And when I say hungry, I'm not saying like they're not out there to, they don't want to perform. When I say the term that they're not hungry is, I mean, they're not starving. They're not trying to figure out how am I going to cover the basics? Why am I working 50, 60 hours to cover the basics? Right. Because then you have a lot of churn. You have a lot of negative, toxic culture.
Yeah.
And it's funny because that same topic point, right, going above and beyond, also got me thinking about toxic work cultures where you're trying to put in 50, 60 hours because you want to show that you can go above and beyond. And I know this, it was a topic that we had talked about in a previous episode where, and especially now, right? I got kids. I know, Joey, you got kids too. And your mindset shifts where you have different priorities. And I want to get the most done in essentially the least amount of hours. So I want to be as productive as possible because there is research, just so you guys know, there is scientific research that shows that after a certain point, it is no longer productive. It is actually counterproductive because it drains you, drains your creativity. It takes patience away. It does so much that's negatively affecting you, even though you think that it's positive results. The actual results could have been attained by shorting that work time down and ensuring you're getting everything else taken care of. Because at that point, you got people, because guys, what control do you have? Think about this. What control do you have at 9 p.m. at night when it comes to your warehouses?
Not at all.
You have a customer blowing you up all the time. You can have an employee blowing you up. It is 9 p.m. at night.
Yeah.
You don't have any control over where that product is coming from, especially if that warehouse isn't even in your state.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like there are control your controllables and there are control the expectations, set the proper expectations, and then communicate to adjust those expectations as needed, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that happen that are going to be out of our control that are going to make things change. But having that understanding and sending that up front, like, all right, guys, especially with like your team, guys, these are the hours you can reach me. After this, unless it's an emergency, right? Here are the steps. I'm going to show you how to take care of this. I'm going to show you your chain of command where you need to go. If I'm out, if so-and-so is out, that way you know how to go up the chain and be able to handle it yourself and have that, not the responsibility, but have the autonomy.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So, that brings up a good topic, man, because you talk about, I remember being in this position, man, like just working extra just to say how committed I am, right?
Yeah.
And that's how I wanted to show it to the company. That's how I wanted to show it to my manager. That's how I wanted to show it to my employees. And I was like, what am I doing? Like, I can definitely overwork myself, but if I'm the only one that is motivated to put that kind of effort in, like, I might be doing an injustice to myself. But there's a lot of talk right now when it comes to the 4-day work week, right? And, whoever country is thinking that it's the best idea, this and that. I still haven't processed it in my mind. But
there's pros and cons.
I definitely think there's pros and cons, right? Because I think definitely one of the cons is that having 3 days off. Let's say you have 3 days off in a row, and then you go back to work that next day, like you may not be in the swing of things, right? Because you lost a little bit of your habits, right? You took a little bit too much time off. It's like that person coming back from vacation. But on the plus side, like you said, you and I both have families. We get to spend a little bit more time with our family, which means that when we go back to work, maybe we're a little bit more refreshed and
Reinvigorated.
Yeah. We're appreciative of the time we got to spend with our family, and we're back to work. You know what I mean? And we know that it's going to be quote unquote a short work week because it's four tens, but instead of 5/8. But I don't know. I still haven't processed it in my head. I guess this is it's away from the norm. It's not what everybody's used to. Then I'm thinking about, okay, what about store hours? Like, how does that fit into that? And then I'm thinking about part-time people and full-time, and who gets what. But maybe it's a good thing to like mix into the workforce that's there right now, not make everybody 4-day work week, maybe have some 5-day work weeks, and then we still have some people that are part-time that are working 5 days, whatever the case is, right?
Yeah.
I don't know that it has to be all or none.
Yeah, and it's one of those where obviously talking points, trying it out, see how it works, what doesn't, right? Yeah. Different, obviously, completely different conversation. But the biggest thing is, to your point, right? Having that vigor to actually get things done. And what'll happen often, especially if you're continuously, as a leader, if you're continuously advising, right? Or kind of like nudging your team to go above and beyond and just do extra work.
Yeah.
What'll happen is if you're not giving them the rewards to justify that, they won't stay, right? And those rewards are not just monetary, because people that are putting in those hours aren't putting in those hours to just put in those hours. They're doing it because they want to get promoted. And what'll happen a lot of times, especially with selfish leaders, right? And guys, you got to look in the mirror and you got to understand, am I being selfish, right? Because we talked about this. I've already told you my mantra. It is, I'm going to train you up to replace me, because the more of you that can replace me in my role, that means I have more leaders being developed so I can get promoted and move up. Right. But if you're purposely trying to keep your team from being promoted because, well, yeah, they put in hours, but this, but that, when their reviews come up with your leadership, right? Because that's a bunch of the stuff you guys don't see on the front line, is all the conversations on the back end to see who can be on the bench, who's next up, who's not, right? If you're continuously holding them back because their production from that one particular person is far better than anybody else, you're doing yourself a disservice, and more importantly, you're doing them a disservice, and they're not going to stick around. Right? That's a big thing. They're not going to stick around.
Yeah, that's important, man. And my wheels are start turning around that 4-day work week, man. I get stuck. But like, what if the 4-day work week is a form of compensation? You know what I mean? Like, hey, you've been with us for 2-3 years. Your performance is where we want it to be. Is that something that you would like to graduate into? Right? Your performance, if granted that your performance stayed the same and things like that, like maybe it's a form of compensation, because like you're saying, it may not only be money that person wants as compensation. It depends on what their priorities are, and it's up to you as a leader to understand, hey, look, this is something that they talked about, but I really didn't give it too much attention. But maybe that's something that could be a form of compensation. I mean, just throwing it out there, man. But I think most definitely, you have to make sure that you are communicating the goals in a certain way. So part of what I used to do to really communicate goals and my expectations is, my bottom line expectation is to overachieve, right? And I'm not saying in a metric point of view. I'm talking about in like, hey, what is the baseline of expectations? And if we do this every time, yes, we're going to be successful, but we're going to be successful in a very big way, because it's not to meet that minimum standard, right? It's to, hey, this is where we want to be. We've all agreed, we've talked about it. These are the best things to do. This is my standard. This is the company standard, right? Yeah. This is where we want to be every day. This is where we want to execute day in, day out. And if we fall short, look where we're at. We're still ahead of where the company expected us to be.
Yeah. Now the question becomes, you set those expectations, how do you get there? Right?
Yeah.
And that's always a big talking point. So like for me, it's always been about money. At the end of the day, I have a lifestyle, right? I'm not gonna lie. If you come to me and you're like, Omar, I enjoy my work. Money's not an issue. Okay. You got a trust fund? No. You live at home with your parents? No. I want to have my own place. Okay. So money is the issue. Because if
Yeah.
you're telling me that you would do this same job for half the pay, you're like, no, that's not what I mean. It's like, then exactly, money is a sticking issue. It's a sticking point,
Yeah.
right? Especially if you're in sales. You're in sales because you enjoy the type of money and the things it can afford you. At the end of the day, money is not a bad thing, right?
Right.
If your conversation around money is evil, money is not evil. Money is a tool to accomplish what you want to accomplish, right? If we did things in goats, right? Joey, the number of goats you have, that's, your income, whatever the case is, right? We would do things in goats.
Right.
It's as simple as that. So what I would do when I was a seller, I would literally write down what I wanted to make for the year, and I would break that down into a monthly goal and figure out commission-wise, where do I need to be at to be able to at least hit this point.
Yeah.
And then I would work backwards to figure out how many, deals I needed, what KPIs would work the best and keep me in line, right? Because at the end of the day, I want to make sure that I'm doing the most that I can in the time that I have without needing to, kill myself to be able to hit that. Because for me, if I got a seller who in 38 hours can knock out 120 to 130% to goal in a month, compared to the person that is trying to squeeze in 45 50 hours a week and they're hitting 140%, 150. Like, yeah, don't get me wrong, it's a 10-20% increase.
Yeah.
But how much more time, right, do they have to put in? Can you imagine what they could actually accomplish if they focus in on this particular time?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it's one of those that always boggled my mind.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's, it boils down to the person. I've once had somebody tell me that, salespeople are born with those skills, not necessarily learned. Right. And I think that's an inaccurate statement. And I think the same thing, like they say that leaders are born a certain way. But honestly, those habits, the way that they speak, the way that they value things, or, the way that they prioritize, it's a learned thing, right? Just like when you went through and you made your own goal, like you didn't just concentrate on what the goals that the company gave you, right? You concentrated on your own goals because yes, I mean, I'm one of those people that downplay pay, but I know that pay is very important, right? And I very quickly found out, like, if I'm nonchalant about it, then the company be nonchalant about it. You know what I mean? Like they don't know that it's important to me. They don't necessarily know that I try to be humble when it comes to that. Like I don't want to ask for anything, but like I said, I quickly found out if I don't ask for it, I'm not going to get it. Yeah. I mean, I think that's it's one of those things that, that you need to do because you have to see the light at the end of the tunnel. What am I doing this day in and day out for? And that's when it comes to compensation, right? But it's in all aspects. Like, what are your aspirations for this job? Like what position do you see yourself in a couple of years at the end of this year? And, maybe it's not a different position, but maybe it's knowledge wise, right? How much more knowledge can I gain in maybe a different asset of the company, or a different what am I trying to say? A different department, right? A different,
different area of the company, right?
Right. And like we talked about, the quote, I always get it wrong. I always jack of all trades, right?
Jack of all trades, master of none, better than one.
There you go. But like you have to plan those things out. They don't happen accidentally, right? Because sometimes if they happen accidentally, then you won't retain it, right? We already talked about the process, but you have to give yourself goals in a lot of different aspects. So I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, and for me, like that's what I did myself. I taught my leaders how to do that, and I would do that with my sales team as well, right?
Right.
I would do that with the people I was training, and if I had new hires, I would explain that process. And because at the end of the day, if you're in sales, money is a sticking point.
Yeah.
I don't care what it is, especially now these days more than ever. But in sales, it always has been and always will be, because that's what sales is. You're there to make more money. But once you have that understanding, once your team has that understanding, all right, these are the expectations, but really, what are your goals? What are your expectations? When you have that conversation, you also get to understand where they're at in life, what's important, what's not important, and you have a better understanding of what motivates and what doesn't, right? So you can have those conversations. To me, when I'm a DM to my direct leaders that are running my stores, I know how to have the conversations for them directly about what's important and why certain metrics need to get hit for them to be able to get that trip that they want to go on, right? For my sales team, I can congratulate my top performers because I know what they're going after and what it means for them. And I can also help motivate the bottom performers along with the leadership at those locations by reaching out and be like, hey, I just want to see what I can do to help out, or, what we can do to help you out to get to where you need to be at. Because I know you said that such and such was something you wanted to hit. And if you just put a little bit more effort into this area, that can get you past that point. And it comes down to communication, comes down to knowing your team, comes down to spending time, and also the training that you give your team, right?
Yeah.
And I will never downplay training. It is hands down the most important thing you'll ever do, regardless. And here's the thing, guys. I don't care if you do a simple damn training that improves a minor little thing to your team, or if you do a big old 6-month, 12-month course training to get your team going. At the end of the day, any training that you provide your team will increase some level of productivity.
Yeah.
The issue becomes, how long is it going to stick, right? How long is that going to continue? And how effective? Because guess what? At the end of the day, if 2% better is what you get from a training, it is still better than 0% better. Right?
Yeah. I mean, it's better than -2.
Exactly. Right. At the end of the day, any movement forward is better. But we're here talking about how we can get not a 10 to 20% lift. We're wanting to get you to a point where you can easily see yourself do a 30 to 50% lift or more. Right. I've seen locations go up 100% before. And it comes down to the type of training that you have to your team, and then also the type of training that you give yourself, and how you're able to communicate effectively with your team as well. Right? Now, on that note, before we go forward, don't forget, guys, hit that subscribe button, follow us, comment, let us know what you guys are thinking. What are your thoughts on what we've just been talking about?
Great. Well, I got some more stuff to talk about on that, right? So, what I heard you say, man, was like you talked about what is motivating a particular employee, right? And we can talk about motivating leaders, we can talk about motivating employees, we can talk about anybody in the company is motivated by a certain goal or whatever it is, right? And the company wants to sell whatever it is that they're selling, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, where do those goals kind of intersect?
Yep.
Right? How can the company sell and get you to where you need to be together at the same time, right? You're both trying to do something to benefit each other, right? So it's good for you to know what this side wants and what this side wants, one being the company, one being the employer, the leader, whoever it is, and move both sides forward towards that. It may not be the same goal, because your goal obviously isn't to make money from a sale. I guess you want to make money because of your employment. They want to make money because of the sale, whatever it is. However, but basically it's almost a common goal, right? You want to move together in the same direction so that the success is synonymous, right? the other thing that I was gonna mention, I don't know what's going on with me today, man. But you were talking about I don't know. We'll move on. But I mean, like,
Yeah, and to your point, right, about moving forward,
yeah,
like it's literally finding what is going to get everybody aligned in the same path,
yeah,
right? This is what you're trying to hit. All these individual people is what they're trying to get. Cool. This is where the company's trying to get to as well. So how can we best align that? And don't
that,
come at me, well, Omar, we're a family, right? That's one of the big reasons we do things. I was like, I'm thinking over here, like, okay, unless you're a family owned business where it's only family running the business, or you're an employee owned business, you are not family. Because
yeah,
if you can fire that person, or if that person were to pass away and you just continue to move on, right, without taking, time off or having those people taken care of, you're not family, right? You might feel like family with your team because you guys hang out, stuff like that, but the company and them are not. You and the company are not, right?
right, right,
And I'm not saying that to downplay large organizations, small organizations, or anything like that. It's, you need to understand that you're using that term incorrectly and hoping that drives some type of commitment to the unified goal. And it actually can do a lot worse than that, right?
yeah. Because sometimes the employee thinks that, hey, if I'm family, I should be getting compensated like you are, right?
Yeah.
Because I mean, when you use that term, they may get the wrong idea, especially if you don't communicate it the right way, right? We've been
Yeah.
talking about that all the time. So I remember what I was going to talk about, man. This is kind of a small thing, but you talked about the 1% better, right? And being in branch banking and things like that, we obviously had tellers, and they need to balance at the end of the day, right? And they go through however many transactions. Sometimes it can be really busy, sometimes it can be crazy, right?
Who stole
But
that money?
yeah, right. Sometimes it fell in people's pockets. I'm just playing, but no. But one of the things that, like, as I would be walking through the teller line, I'd be like, "Hey, man, did you face your bills?" And that was just one of the things I would always talk about. I was very consistent about, "Hey, are your bills faced the right way?" Because in my wallet, it's got to be big bills to small bills, all facing the same way.
Yep.
That's the way I kind of manage my wallet, right? But I kind of took that aspect and passed that along to the tellers because of a couple reasons, right? If they're paying that much attention to how the bills are going, you know that the right bill is going in the right slot, which means at the end of the day, when they go to balance, it's going to be accurate. More than likely, it's going to be
Even
accurate.
out.
Right, right, right. And so every once in a while, we go through and somebody's off $20. Okay, well, somebody's got to count that till again. So to do the double, I can't remember what it was called, but anyways, so I'm counting it. I'm counting. I'm like, hey man, your bills aren't faced. And then what do you know? I find a bill in the wrong section, right? And then we figure out that that's where the money was. And that's how I kind of like, hey man, like, I talk about this all the time. I know that it seems like a small thing. I know that we are busy, but it's important for you to stay consistent. So at the end of the day, you're not having to take a loss on your on your balance statement, and right, your job won't be in jeopardy after however many times of you being off, right? So it's
Yep.
like it's a common thing. Like, I want you to be here. You need to be here. Like,
Yeah,
let's work.
and that goes back, Joey, to the conversations we've had about habit building, right?
Yeah,
Because how many times have I said this? It's not about the big changes. If you're coming in to make a big dramatic change about how you're running the business, it is guaranteed to fail
yeah,
because it's not sustainable. It's a shock to the system, yes. And it might
yes,
work for a little bit. I'm not saying you're not going to see some results, right? Just back to the conversation we were having a few minutes ago. You'll see
yeah,
some results. But because the change was so dramatic, it's going to revert back to where it was at,
right,
and you're going to go back, so you're not going to see those same results. Now, to your point of a small change, that's what habit building is. It's a small thing that you're going to change,
right,
and that small habit change is going to yield better results over the long term. Because I guarantee you, Joey, you had a lot of your guys pick that up naturally after a while, because it's like, okay, it's a small thing, but it's not that big of a thing. I can easily do it. It's not going to take that much longer. But you also see that decrease on the back end where you probably saw a large decrease on, the amount of tills that were off over a quarter over the year. right?
Yeah, but that wasn't the only benefit. Like, yes, that, and
That's the point.
I mean, so that is a great thing. Yes, we lost more money as a bank, and things like that. But then we would talk about you balance after we close, right? And if somebody was off, how many people have to stay to double check your till, try and find the transaction, this and that, blah blah blah, right? When if you did it and you stayed consistent throughout the day, there are many benefits because not only are we paying more as a company to keep you there to find the money, like you're upset, like you want to leave at whatever time it is, right? You're scheduled 20, 15, 30 minutes after closing time so you can do all these things, but now it's taking you an hour to go through and try to find that money, right? So it's like, and now you're an upset, employee, and then now maybe they feel incapable. They come in tomorrow and they're like, they don't, feel like working there anymore, but all because of this little thing that could have been implemented to prevent that feeling from happening, and I think that's important.
Yeah, and think about the conversation we just had a few minutes ago about training, right? So the way I trained my people, an easy way to get them to visualize what hitting the goals was, right, is what it meant. So, all right, Joey, what do you want to hit for the year? Okay, you want to make this much? Why? Right? I want to know.
Right.
Like, I'm not trying to pry into your personal life, but I just want to know what that means for you as a person, right?
Right.
What does it mean for you? What does it mean for your family? If you want to talk about that, like, why is it important? Why is it important for you to make $10,000 more than you did last year, right?
Yeah.
I'm not going to say no. Cool. All right, that's what you want to do. So let's create an action plan. Let's create, a goal that we want to hit. Let's break it down. Boom. And as you're going through and you realize, all right, this is what we need to hit, and they have an understanding and they create that mental mindset that they've now written out and they verbally communicated as well to another person, not just to themselves, but another person.
Yeah.
It becomes a lot easier for people to ask for help or assistance in trying to get something taken care of and figure something out. And it's a small question of asking why, like why, what else, little things like that. And when you're following up with your team, right? So say it's halfway through the month and I'm not hitting my, where I'm supposed to be at. Joy calls me up. He's like, hey, Omar, I see your numbers. I know you said you wanted to be at X, Y, and Z. You're doing pretty good in some areas. Like walk me through some of the areas you're struggling with, see what I can do to help out. Right. Cool.
Yeah.
A small thing about opening up those lines of communication leads to bigger end results, not just with productivity, but also with longevity from your team.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, and here's what I'm thinking, right? You ask that person, most definitely it might improve production, right? But now that person could be feeling insecure about them not hitting their goals. And now you're making them feel better about, hey, I can do this. Like, this is what you've noticed I've been doing. Like I had no clue, right? Depends on how you
Yep.
that, right? Depends on how you communicate that to give them that aha moment. But like that small conversation can lead to massive improvements in productivity, but also we're talking about how they feel as an employee, right? How they're doing. Like you care about them, right? Not just the production, but also hey, look, I know this is getting to you. Like, what can I do to help? I think that's the way to approach it.
No, and that part is huge, right? Having that line of communication, letting them know that you're there to assist, yields massive results, right? And the longevity portion of it, like I said, people that are happy with their leadership tend to stay longer. And we all know this, it's been well documented. The majority of people leave organizations because of their leadership.
Yeah.
Right? That's hands down. That is, I think, like 80% of people that leave at one point. It's strictly because of leadership.
Right.
They could have been saved. They could have transferred to a different department. They have, years of experience. They know the industry. They know the business. Their knowledge could be put to good use somewhere else.
Right.
But they just can't stand the leader, and they know the organization isn't going to do anything. And it's those little tidbits of communication. If you as a leader change the way you communicate with your team to better understand them, what works, what doesn't work, boom. It could be a small little thing about just asking how their day is. And it's funny because there's a lot of obviously, you guys, if you were to look at my LinkedIn profile and all my stuff, you'll see it's always like leadership stuff that pops up. You'll end up seeing how one-on-ones, you want to talk about, how they're doing. You don't want to jump into the business right away. You want to find out how your team is doing, because that is who they are. Work is an aspect of what they do, not who they are. So once your team understands that you actually care about them as individuals, they're not really going to care 100% as much as you think, right? Because remember, you can't read their minds. They can't read yours. So what you think and what they think are two completely separate things.
Communication, man. It just, there's a lot of aspects of leadership. And, I know we talk about a lot of different things and how to put those things together, right? But it's all about communication, because if we talk about it, if you reach out to us, if you comment and you present a problem that you're having, and we are able to shed some light or a different perspective on what you're going through, you might have a light bulb go off, right? And it might push you through that particular situation. And then now a week later, you're like, I wasn't having a problem. What are you talking about? Like, it's so far gone. You're on to the next thing, right? That's how something can turn around, right? So it's important, man. I saw you talked about LinkedIn, man, and I saw a CEO post something about like the first line said, "I need help," and I was like, "Oh my gosh!" Like, I definitely see more. And I was like, "What was he talking about?" And he said, just the different aspects of his life that he needs help with. Like he's got a support board, he's got a personal coach, a business coach, to help him through certain. He's got a gym trainer, right?
Personal trainer.
He's got a personal trainer. He's got, like different aspects of his life. He has support throughout the different things, right? And, whether it be professional, financially, or personal, right? You have different goals, but you definitely those support cases or the lines of support to help you through certain situations. So that's what we're here to do. We're here to help you through the leadership side, right? How to punch through, get past that roadblock, and take you to the next level.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, guys, it doesn't matter how long you've been a leader. Things change. Change is constant. It's always going to happen. What worked 5-10 years ago isn't going to work the same. It's not going to have the same effect. People change, things change. And there's newer technologies that make things a little bit easier and also a little bit harder, right? They can work with and against us. So it's about harnessing it. But the biggest thing, guys, if you guys take anything away from today's episode, is communication is key. Not just with your work, right? With your coworkers, your employees, your leadership. I mean, even at home, okay?
Yeah.
Communication is key. So you just never want to forget that. And you always want to keep it front and center, because everybody communicates differently. It's learning how to be able to break through to that. And we can do countless, and we will do countless episodes on this topic. I guarantee that already. All right.
Right. Well, so I want to say, thank you guys for listening in. Don't forget to follow us on socials, comment, let's have that conversation, man. Communication is key.
Big time. I 100% agree, Joey. Guys, thanks again for stopping in. We'll catch you on the next episode.
All right. See y'all later.
And that brings us to the end of today's Obvious Leadership episode. Remember, every great leader starts with one step, and you're already on your way. Small changes lead to significant impact. Until next time, keep leading with purpose, and remember that leadership is the key to unlocking extraordinary results.